You are standing in line. Your phone is in your hand before you even decide to reach for it. 30 seconds of nothing and your thumb is already moving. You call this boredom. But the real answer to what boredom actually is and what it was built for is far stranger than a habit you picked up from your phone. Your brain did not evolve to scroll. It evolved to hunt, to track, to notice. And for almost the entire span of human existence, there was no screen to fill the gap. So what did people do with that same restless feeling, tens of thousands of years before the first notification ever buzzed? Start with a number. Modern humans, in something close to their current form, have existed for roughly 300,000 years. Smartphones have existed for less than 20. If you compressed all of human history into a single day, screens would appear in the final half second before midnight. So for the other 23 hours, 59 minutes, and 59 and a half seconds, boredom still existed. Brains still ran out of stimulation, and people still had to do something about it. Here is where the story gets strange. You might assume ancient life left no room for boredom at all. Survival, you'd think, was a full-time job. Hunting, gathering, defending, migrating. No time to stare at the wall. But anthropologist Marshall Solins overturned that assumption in a paper that reshaped how researchers think about early human life. He argued that many hunter-gatherer societies were, in his words, the original affluent society. Not because they had more possessions, because they had more time. Decades later, anthropologist James Sussman spent years living among the Juhwanzi people of the Kalahari, one of the last groups on Earth still practicing something close to a traditional hunter-gatherer lifestyle. What he documented was startling. Adults in these communities often worked only around 15 hours a week to meet their basic needs. 15. Less than half of a standard modern work week. The rest of the time was unclaimed. So what filled it? Not idleness, not blank staring. The unclaimed hours were where human culture was built. Think about what a mind does when it has nothing urgent to solve. It doesn't shut off, it starts generating. Psychologist Sandy Mann has spent years studying this exact mechanism in modern subjects, and her findings point somewhere unexpected. Boredom, she found, is not the opposite of creativity. It's the trigger for it. In her experiments, people who were given a deliberately dull task before a creative task consistently outperformed those who went straight into the creative task with no boring warm-up. The dull stretch wasn't wasted time. It was preparation. Now place that discovery back into the deep past. An ancient human, done hunting for the day, done gathering enough food, sitting by a fire with hours of daylight left and no task demanding attention. What happens in that gap? Evidence suggests quite a lot. Some of the oldest known art in the world wasn't created out of necessity. Nobody needed the Lascaux cave paintings to survive the night. Nobody needed the carved ivory figurines found in Germany, some over 40,000 years old, to catch more food tomorrow. These were made in the leftover hours, in the boredom. Storytelling likely emerged the same way. Around a fire with nothing left to hunt and nothing left to gather, someone started talking. Not to transmit urgent survival information, just to fill the space. And the people listening leaned in, because a restless mind wants a story the same way a restless mind wants a story today, whether it's around a fire or on a screen. The delivery method changed completely. The underlying hunger did not change at all. Games appear to follow the same pattern. Archaeologists have found gaming pieces, dice-like objects, and marked stones in sites tens of thousands of years old, long before anything resembling written rules existed. Someone, somewhere, sat down with nothing to do and turned pebbles into a contest. Why would a species obsessed with survival waste time inventing games? Unless the waste was the point, unless boredom demanded an outlet, and play was the outlet that emerged. There's a pattern forming here, and it's worth naming directly. Boredom in ancient life wasn't a problem to be solved by distraction. It was a pressure that got converted into invention. No screen to swallow the discomfort. No infinite feed to smother the itch. Just the itch itself sitting there, until something got made to answer it. Compare that to what happens now. The moment restlessness appears, most people reach for a device that resolves it in under a second. No friction, no gap, No space for the mind to wander into something new. Researchers studying attention, including work building on Sandeman's boredom studies, have raised a concerning possibility. If the discomfort of boredom is eliminated instantly, every single time, the mind may lose practice at doing what it used to do automatically, which is invent its own way out. This doesn't mean ancient life was some idyllic paradise of leisure and creativity. It wasn't. There was real danger, real hunger, real loss. But the boredom itself, that specific flat, itchy, restless sensation, appears to have functioned as fuel rather than as a void. It pushed people toward each other, toward stories, toward marks on cave walls, toward games with rules nobody wrote down because nobody needed to. So why does your brain still generate that same restless signal today, tens of thousands of years, and one agricultural revolution, and one industrial revolution, and one digital revolution later? Because the mechanism producing boredom hasn't updated. It's the same ancient alarm, still going off, still saying, make something, still saying, fill this space with your own mind instead of someone else's feed. The alarm hasn't changed. Only what answers it has changed. And that's the twist worth sitting with. The people you imagine as constantly struggling to survive actually had significant stretches of open time, and they used that open time to build the earliest versions of art, story, and play. You, with your climate-controlled home and your refrigerator, and your instant access to nearly all of human knowledge, often experience the exact same restless feeling they did. The difference is what you reach for the moment it appears. There's a small experiment worth trying, based on exactly what the research points toward. The next time you feel that specific itch, the one that sends your hand toward your phone without asking permission, wait. Just for a few minutes, not because boredom is pleasant, it usually isn't, but because that discomfort might be the same ancient pressure that once produced cave paintings and campfire stories and the first game anyone ever invented. Underneath the phone, underneath the scroll, the same alarm your ancestors felt is still sounding. It's only ever been asking one question: what will you make with this? You are standing in line. Your phone is in your hand before you even decide to reach for it. But somewhere underneath that automatic motion is the same ancient signal your ancestors felt around a fire 40,000 years ago. And for a moment, before you unlock the screen, you get to choose what answers it.